We've taken a look at adding content with the on-screen keyboard in Pages, so now let's take a look at adding content such as tables, charts, shapes, text boxes, and images or video. So each one of these is going to be considered an object. What that means in Pages is that if you go to the plus in the upper right, each one of these four icons at the top, those formats, will be viewed as an object that functions separately from the paragraph and from the text. So we're going to start with a table, and you do have several options for tables. You can see that each one has a different color, and it really is up to you which one you would choose. You can go in, and we'll look at this in the next video, and format the styling and the shape, the cells, and everything of a table. So one thing to note about the table that is different than the other objects you will put in is with the table and Pages, wherever the cursor is where the table will go. So right now you can see that beside the word local, my cursor is blinking. If I choose the first table, that is where the table was put in. So you can locate where the cursor is, put it where you would like it to be first, and then put in the table. But let's say that you put a table in and it's not exactly where you wanted it to be. When you want to move the table, you can hold down on it, and when you move off of the table, you're going to see that same magnifying glass that we looked at before is going to appear. So when you're moving the table, it is going to move by the cursor for the location on your document. So if I put it after the word say, you'll see that now it has moved it to the end of that section, and the cursor then moves below the table. If I reshape the table, it is still going to remain where it is, and it will still move in the same way that it did when I first put it in. At this point, if I have the table and I push the paintbrush and I go to Arrange, I have several options here that I will see for each object that I can put in. One of them is Move with the Text. So if I turn this off and I go back to my document right below Say and I push Return, you'll see that the table did not move with the return strike. If I go back to my paintbrush for the table and I turn this on, and now I push Return, you'll see that the cursor is now immediately beside the table, and if I push Return again, it creates a space there. So that's important because as you begin to manipulate your document or you need to move something, that can be of vital importance. The other thing that's important for each and every object that we put in is not only the move with text, but how it interacts with the text around it. You'll see that by default the table says in line with text. If I push automatic and I move the table, you now see what is happening with the text. It is moving around the table based on my option to make it automatic. So at this point I could literally put the table in the middle of that paragraph. I wouldn't want to do that, but I could. The other thing that you'll see that you can do is you can make the text work around it, above it, and below it, or you can choose none. If you choose none, it will layer this table over the text and it will not move the text at all, so it adds another layer to my Pages document. So if I choose around, you'll see that I can also add extra space so that I can space it. If I make it automatic, you'll see that I can also add extra space. So you can really create this however you would like, but it does put the table in by default to be in line with the text, and that is something you can change if you want. Usually if you're putting in a table, you want it to be separate or be able to be read, but at the same time you can manipulate that. The other thing that you can add to a Pages document is a chart, and you have three options for the chart. The first is a 2D chart, which is a plain flat on the paper chart. The second is 3D, which is a standard chart but actually has a little bit of a stand off the page look or design or style. And finally is an interactive. The nice thing about the interactive chart is that you can create an interactive chart to be the compilation of multiple charts together. For instance, I'll choose this first chart that they show us. I'm going to resize it, move it right here in the document, and you'll see that there's a slider below. So this says April, and I can see for region 1 and 2. If I choose that arrow, it now goes to May. I can push on the dot as well, and it goes to each one. So I could take 3, 4, or 5, as many charts as I need, put it into one interactive chart, and contain all of that information there. Now I do have the same options for how it is arranged with the text. I can move it with the text. I can make it automatic, so when I put it in, it moves the text around. Each object that you put into the Pages document will have this arrange feature to it. The next thing that you can add under Shapes is a text box. And you may be thinking, well, why would I want to add a text box when I'm in a word processing document? Well, maybe you want to add a text feature or tell the students to add a text feature, but you aren't sure about the formatting for that. You can add a text box and move this anywhere you would like, and again, it is an object, so it will interact with the text around it based on that information you choose under Arrange. So if you would like them to add a text box, and let's say that we put the text box over to the side, it will automatically adjust the text around it so that they don't have to worry about spacing or tabs or anything like that. It automatically does it. I could now move this table down out of the way, and I have my chart. So my paragraph is contained right there with the features around it. The other thing you can add is a shape, and that shape is a text box. So if you grab hold of the shape and you double click inside of it, it is going to bring up a cursor, and you can use that as a text box. So you do not have to overlay the shape. Just the same as any object, if I go to my paintbrush and choose Arrange, I can see how it will interact with the text. The other thing you saw there above shapes were lines. You can drop in a line or a line that you may need to curve or change at any time. And then finally, you can add photos or videos. You can insert them directly from your camera roll. You can go to Insert From, and if iCloud Drive or Google Drive are set up, you can log into that and choose from there. Or you could take a photo or a video directly from your iPad while in the Pages app. So if students are working on things, they're working on a project, science, anything like that, they can capture photo and video and it will drop it into the Pages document immediately. They do not have to go out to their camera roll to grab it. They can take it on the fly and create their document as they go. So those are the basics for adding content into a Pages document as far as the objects goes. Remember, we went to the plus, and we could add a table, a chart, text box, line, or shape, or photo or video from a camera roll or from the iPad itself from using the camera within the app.